Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our little talking group. It's good to see you. I hope you've all had a wonderful Thanksgiving and are looking forward to the next holiday, Christmas and Hanukkah. So, here we are with lots of things happening in this world, and we will have the opportunity to talk about it. I'm Pearl Walkman, the host, and I'd like to introduce my panel. Frank
Desmond. I live in DuPont at Fuller Village.
And I'm Lucille Kelly, and I'm in DuPont in Fuller Village.
And I'm Tara Lynch, and I live in the villas at Fuller.
Well, panel, let's get started. Frank, you've got some things to say about Milton. What's happening in our town? Give us a lowdown on it, please.
Well, we're in the middle of the deer hunt, which not too many people are happy with, but it started in early November, and instead of the 17 bow and arrow hunters, they had 100 bow and arrow hunters this year, and it was just bow and arrows up until this week. And now there's 2 weeks of shotguns. And I can't give you an exact count of how many deer were taken, but it wasn't very many. And I was speaking to somebody that lives in the middle of the Blue Hills, basically on Hillside Street, and she mentioned she's only seen one deer this year in their neighborhood, and normally there's flocks of deer. And everybody that protests the deer hunt basically says there aren't that many deer still in the Blue Hills. But the State Conservation and Resource Department are the ones that determine how many should be killed, and they say there's still as many deer as there was before. But I do agree with the protesters. The state's counting system is terrible.
Okay, how do they count the deer in the Blue Hills? How do they get to a figure?
They have a map of the entire Blue Hills, and they've picked the spots that are most prevalent to have deer. And they go around, which is a little bit strange, and count the droppings of the deers. And when they see a lot of droppings, they go, oh, this is how many deer there are. And
Doesn't sound very scientific.
no, I listened to the Milton High School debate about it, and the first lady that spoke against the deer hunt said, how do you know it isn't the same deer?
Walking around
That's a
in
possibility.
circles.
Yeah.
But you know, Frank, don't you think also that there's very easy access that these animals have to the Neponset River, the Neponset Valley. And I will make a bet that many of them probably go back and forth, you know, where there's more water supply in the Neponset River, and then they just come up through the woods, and you know, so that they're constantly, and I can't think they just stand around and do droppings so that people can count them, you know. But they're on the move.
The Conservation and Resource State Association that wants the hunting to continue says the deers are ruining the trees, the brush, and everything else. But a friend of mine who lives very close to Wallaston Golf Club had all of his shrubs in his entire yard just eaten away by deer. And he saw them. But he had to get all new shrubs. But that was 10 years ago.
Right.
Since then, the shrubs have been replaced and they're doing fine, and there's no deer around.
Okay, so at the end of this deer hunting season, will we get the true figure of how many deer were killed?
Yes,
Okay.
at the end, we
Okay,
will.
and what will it cost to kill one deer? Have you any idea?
Well, it was $2,500 per deer last year that it cost the taxpayers. So this year will probably be a little more because everybody working there has gotten raises.
Well, somebody on the
Everything's gone
state
up.
level ought to reconsider the deer hunt.
Our state representative, Mr. Driscoll, has come up, and I think I mentioned it before, that he would like to have a drone fly at night with infrared so they could count the exact number of deer that are in the Blue Hills. But
Pretty
I
interesting
don't think
setup.
I don't think he got that funded. So
What would something like that cost?
I don't know, to be honest.
That would be interesting to
Wouldn't
find
that be
out.
kind of fun?
You know, and
That may be the answer.
maybe some of these protesters would fund it.
Well, could
That
be.
Want the deers?
I mean, good citizens.
Yes.
Well, the whole
Well, they've heard it from us.
Yeah.
Let's see
and
what
the whole
happens.
idea of
Yeah.
culling is that deer won't starve. Never mind cutting, cutting into the trees and everything. Some of the people that want the cull are concerned about the fact that the deer could starve if there's an overabundance of deer
not
grazing
enough-
on what
not
is
enough
left.
food, yeah.
They say 8 to 25 is the maximum amount of deer per square mile, and they're saying there's 85 deer per square mile in the Blue Hills. Now, that count hasn't been retaken in 3 years, and it's supposed to be taken every 2 in order to have the hunt. So
I think they'd be stumbling over each other if there were 85
Well,
per square
I
mile.
think the answer is that some money ought to be appropriated for
to
drones
count.
to get a count, to get an accurate count, so we know what we're talking about. I mean, just to
Interesting.
suppose there's so many deer and there are not so many deer, that doesn't sound reasonable.
No, it isn't.
Okay, so let's put them on notice. People who are listening and who represent us in the legislature, get the money for the drones.
And
Okay.
also this year, between
At least get the
having
count.
a mount,
Yes, an accurate
a
count.
month-long bows and arrows hunt, and now 2 weeks of shotgun shooting, the area was increased from 3,400 acres to over 4,000 acres that they're hunting in. So they increase the amount of acreage.
Wow. That's
They
right.
increase the amount of hunters, and there should be deer falling everywhere with what's
Well,
going
we'll
on.
see the reports, and we'll
I
go
wanna
on
see
from
'em.
there.
I will have it for the next FullerTalk.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else to tell us about Milton?
Just the selectmen and the library trustees are working on the Kidder Library. The Kidder Library is one of the libraries that was closed. It's on Blue Hills Parkway. And that was being debated this past week. And I did not attend, but the selectmen spoke about making it a teenage center and other ideas for the place. And one is also to sell it and get it back on the property tax roll, but it needs quite an awful lot of work. They said millions of dollars worth of renovating. So I don't have an answer for that right now, but that's being debated.
Okay, so perhaps the next time we get together, you'll have some more information.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Frank. Now, Tara, what have you got to say about what's happening in our state?
Well, there's just really two things that I'm going to mention. One of them is the continued slow progress of the cannabis committee. And if, ladies and gentlemen out there, and everyone, I need to put the glasses on. The initial regulation filing will be December 29th, and that should include
29th, huh?
December 29th. The criteria for winning your dispensary licenses, rules for marijuana consumption bars, I didn't know was being discussed, and plans for ensuring the diversity in the actual industry itself. The final regulations should be promulgated on March 15th, and the companies would then be allowed to apply for licenses on April 1st. So if the regulations are approved and everything, things are slowly beginning to progress on that. But the one thing that I really caught my eye, well, two things. First of all, our legislature has voted monies for birth control, partly as a preventative measure, It was both the Senate and the House overwhelmingly voted for it as a protection for poorer women that might be affected if they lose that coverage under the ACA. So it was a majority of vote in both houses.
Did Baker sign that law?
Yes, yes.
Good.
But the interesting thing that's happening is the changes in the MBTA. And to the cost of over $7 million, what the plan is that you will be able to use an app, an MBTA app on your cell phone, so that you swipe the cell phone to get on the MBTA, and then when the conductors come through, they will have something that can read your app. That sounds great for the trains because you've got definite stations. The concern for a lot of people is the bus routes.
Yes.
In one sense, it would be really great because the conductors, or rather the drivers, wouldn't have to put in the wait time of collecting the money, because there again, you'll have that app to swipe, and people can just quickly get on the buses.
Oh.
But what about seniors? What about the people who occasionally use the T and usually come with money? At the train stations, there will be kiosks where you can put your money in and get your money out. But on the bus routes, there will be some kiosks along the way, but they're not going to be able to have a kiosk at every single bus stop. So that's something that will have to be looked at. And I imagine that's true of many young mothers with kids and things like that, you know, to get on and off the buses. And it's very important in the city. It's not so much important necessarily for us who more use the trains or the T.
But Tara, building kiosks is going to cost a lot of money.
Well, that's part of the whole plan.
And
$723
who's going to decide where the kiosks
Well,
are going
there again,
to
part
go?
of the reason they're doing this is it will give them a very good idea of what routes are used.
Yes.
You know, what times are the particular
With
used.
more traffic.
You know, routes. They're also talking about. Well, they've been talking about this for a long time, but have more dedicated bus lanes. And around Boston, with its windy whatever streets, that will be interesting.
Used to be cow paths.
You know,
It's
but
still a-
but and it will take. I think they're aiming for 2018. I think something like that. But it's an interesting. It's just a very interesting
Yes.
sort of upgrade. Now, if they could just get the ones that they're working on right now to be a little bit more on time.
Has the governor said anything about it? How does he feel about it? Have we heard anything?
I don't know that he's made a complete, you know, this is a plan. I don't
Yes.
know that it's actually, you know, going to absolutely move forward in the way that the MBTA would like the plan to move. There'll probably be, you know,
Well, we'll
jigs
see
and
what
jogs.
happens.
Yeah,
We'll see if they want to spend the
sounds-
money.
It sounds, well, we talked about, remember we talked about having single rail monorails coming down. Maybe this will be the new monorail
Maybe.
going in and out to Boston.
Well,
But
it'll be an interesting future. to
it'll
look
it'll
forward
be
to.
it'll be in, as long as they remember the people who really need it, and maybe there'll be a special card that could be given to seniors or something, especially seniors. How is a kiosk going to know that I'm a senior and you're not?
Yeah, but
Pearl.
I think what we have to consider is this is for really the working population.
It is. It truly is. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
want to
right.
make the working population have more access to transportation, we've got to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Seniors don't have to go to work. I mean, some
That's right.
seniors
Exactly.
are working.
Exactly.
But I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about the average person who goes to work every day.
Right.
They have to have the convenience of public transportation, and it helps the city, it helps the economics.
And there's a couple of cities that have already done this, and it's worked very
And
successfully.
what are the
Everybody
results?
has an app. everybody does have an app, right?
If you have a cell phone.
I have no
Yeah.
app.
Yeah, right,
Well,
right.
some
But the
people
young
don't-
people do. I mean,
don't
they
have
don't.
cell
They don't
phones.
even have landlines anymore.
And
They,
may I just ask?
Right.
No, this all started because people were jumping over the
Yeah, the turnstile.
The turnstiles.
to make their trains or would make their buses or something.
well, it seems that the conductors will be on the trains, and they can walk by,
Okay,
and they
that's-
will
that
have
works
they will have a
beautifully.
way that will
Yeah.
be able to. Lord knows
Well,
they can
we'll
pick
see
up
how the
anything.
brains work out this problem.
That's right.
And we
That's
hope
right.
that it'll be to our advantage.
That's right.
The
Absolutely.
cost of the plan, $723 million.
Oh, drop in the bucket, right?
We're a rich
That's a
country.
lot of,
Oh,
that's a
sure.
lot of quarters for the bus ride.
But you know, you watch the traffic now. We've got to get people off the roads because when
Yeah.
they get into Boston, where the heck do they park? You know, and nobody's carpooling anymore. Everybody's driving singly.
Yes.
I'm very glad I don't have to drive to work. You know, our
It's a
kids are
problem.
And there's no more room on 128.
no.
Going back and
Okay, let's
forth.
hope somebody comes up with a viable plan and the money will be there.
Yes, right.
Now, Lucille,
Yes. I wanted to talk about the national situation.
there's lots to talk
And, yeah,
about.
and that would be, of course, our tax.
Yes, our
A
so-called
tax
tax
thing.
reform.
Yes, and also North Korea, and also what is it? The
That's a good thing to talk about.
yes, yes, my dear.
tweeting?
You'll help me
You're
out.
doing
The
good.
My dear
tweeting?
friend is always so good
The
to help me
tweeting?
out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not the tweeting.
We're
The
talking
harassment.
about
With
taxes.
the harassment and the taxes and North Korea.
Oh,
But
Lord.
I want to know. I missed last night as to what happened with Prime Minister May.
Theresa May.
Well,
She was on the TV and she was wild, and I went to bed and I said to myself, "Well, I'll catch up in the morning." Well, what happened?
Well, it seems that that President Trump, as is his wont, I don't know when the poor man sleeps, sees things on
Tweeted.
TV and tweets. And this is one time somebody should have, I guess, broken his fingers, so he didn't. But there were three
happened?
there were three things that came in from a far right group in England
So it all
that were
centered in England.
absolutely wrong. They did not happen at all, and so
You mean they were false?
it was false news, and it was put out by one of their far right kind of people, and
It was
and
anti-Muslim.
it was anti-Muslim, especially,
Yeah.
That's right.
and he immediately just tweeted it as it stood, all these three different things, and complained about what was going on in England.
Oh, such what
and
was
you know that this was what
They
was
were
going.
young kids beating up one
Well,
child.
there were three different
and,
ones,
and they said that they were Muslims
kids, and there weren't.
beating up one guy. I think it was in
Holland. It was in.
Listen, we have a problem with our president. He
Well,
doesn't
but-
require much sleep, and so when he gets up,
Well, that's
he's,
what I'm saying.
He's
It's
tweeting.
amazing. He's
He's
amazing.
tweeting, and it's not always the truth.
And
That's the problem.
And Minister May tweeted back and told him that this
We're gonna
was
have them all
false.
tweeting each
that
other.
this was false news, and
know
that
she was
that
wild.
that you know there was an apology should be rendered and so forth. I mean, it's gotten to the point where she had asked him to come on a state visit to England, and it's being debated right now in Parliament. A whole bunch of British people, parliamentarians, want that visit rescinded because there was this little thing going back and forth
Oh, my.
with our top ally.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
What do you say?
Also,
Frank?
ma-
What do you,
May I say
it's
something else?
stupid. It was stupid of him,
it was very stupid.
and I think
don't
it's a waste of
understand.
time talking about it because North Korea is a little bit more important.
oh, you do think so?
I do think so. It could end,
Okay.
it could
Well,
end
I'd
the
like to- I'd
world
like to-
in
But
a
listen.
year.
some of our allies are very disturbed about Mr. Trump because his behavior is very erratic.
Well, this
And
morning
they
he
don't
met
know
with
which
the top Muslim in the world.
Did he?
Yes, he was
is
sitting in the White House.
And who's the top Muslim?
He's the head of Bahrain.
You mean one of those princes?
He's a prince.
I,
Oh, well, I
He
didn't
met with
see
him this
that.
morning.
But anyway,
we'll have to check
Mr.
on that.
And he
Trump
spent
better be
$9
very careful with his
billion.
tweeting finger. He's antagonizing many of our allies, and they don't know what to make of him. I don't think he knows what to make of himself. to
Well,
be frank.
it's truly too bad because this was a major, major mistake, and maybe he
course.
should have had his coffee first before
Whatever he drinks.
before he did
Where
this.
was General
Well,
Kelly?
it was early in the morning. I mean, he
Hey,
does this
listen, he
early in the
wasn't
morning.
sleeping
He's
with
not
him.
holding his hand 24 hours a day.
That's only
Oh,
that's
all
only
right.
on that's only
Okay.
on television
Oh,
now,
I'm glad.
and in Hollywood.
Let's get let's get on to like
Okay.
Well,
Now
let's
the next
talk
one-
about
next,
taxes.
Next, no, the next thing I wanted to talk about, in case people don't realize
that would be
was the
interesting.
harassment. Did you know? Do you Milton people? Do you know that we have a that our Congress has a workshop for harassment, and because they put that into it because so much was going on, and that they have a slush fund. They've been paying off
right
these harassment suits. Our tax money.
with our tax
Our
money,
tax
not
money.
not making them pay
Yeah,
the
how
suits
do you
themselves.
Like that?
Nancy Pelosi came out today after she was on Meet the Press 4 days ago saying the congressman shouldn't resign. Today she's asking for his immediate
Well, he's in
resignation.
That's
he's in the
what's-
hospital
He's in the
right
hospital.
That's
Yeah.
what's his name.
He's
yeah.
88
Yeah.
years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not going to last too long.
Okay, but really,
he,
I could
he was
not.
taken to the hospital.
I was
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
shocked to hear that we had a slush fund and we've been paying. I think it's up to a couple of $1 million or whatever it is.
17 million.
17 million since
Oh my
what
Lord.
So
was
what-
it? It's
so
been a
we've
number
been
of
paying
about
for
10
that.
years.
Well,
Isn't that interesting?
it's very interesting.
We've been paying for them to sit there and do nothing also.
Well, I am very upset for
and when
one.
they do something, we got to pay a slush.
They have a wonderful health plan. Why don't they give us the same health plan
Yeah.
that they have? We're taxpayers. We're paying their salary. Are you listening, Congressman and
Yes,
Congresswomen?
and
Listen
look
to
what
us.
we're paying into your slush fund too.
Okay, let's go
Really?
on with this tax
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah, let's take the tax bill.
John
Okay.
McCain came out and said he's going to vote for it.
There,
I didn't hear
there,
that.
there
I just wanted
is
to
the-
highlight a couple of things here.
All right.
He's
yeah.
going to vote for it. I couldn't believe it. McCain.
I think we need 2 Republicans to defect.
Right.
so far,
Well,
And I
so
think-
far, there's no
vote for it?
defectors.
But the tax bill is not.
Why would they vote for it?
Because,
there are some
like the
positives in
Alaskan
it.
senator,
there
The
are
last
some
we know
positives.
what she's
she,
very
But not
she,
many.
she
What
was
about
going to vote
Collins?
against it, but they gave more drilling rights in
Alaska, so
and
therefore
she said,
she has
"Okay,
to- all right.
I'm all for your tax
Yeah, that's
plan."
the way they work, sure.
John McCain came out today and said he's going to vote for it.
Michael
What
Dell.
are they giving New Mexico?
Michael Dell,
from
who is the
Arizona.
president of Dell Electronics, has a meeting here in Boston. He is opposed to most of the bill, and he said that in the 1980s, trickle-down economics didn't work
Right,
then.
we know.
No.
It doesn't work now. It's a lie. The interesting thing is, if we remember the 1980s and the election of that year, it was Ronald Reagan versus George H.W. Bush. And George H.W. Bush said, it's voodoo economics.
That's, I
And
remember
this
it.
has been true. There's a young lady that's here, and she says taxes are not going to make
sorry.
any difference.
Bush was
H.W.
Reagan's vice president.
But he did. But he
Okay.
ran against him in the actual election of the, and
Tara,
then Bush
at that
made him.
meeting where Michael Dell was present, I think somebody from the Trump administration asked these CEOs if they would create more
I
jobs
saw that.
if this tax bill went down. No
No
one raised his hand.
Well, this one where Michael
So-
is here in Boston.
Okay.
Right now. Shirley Leung, who's the
Yes, the writer.
reporter,
Yeah.
she's terrific. But she asked the head of Eastern Bank, and he brought up the certain corporate taxes need to be changed. There's a double taxation for people that have places in other countries.
Yes.
They pay the tax in the country they're in, and they pay the American tax, and they want to make just one tax payment. But the girl said that it would make no difference in her company whether she hired anybody, whether she promoted anybody. It would depend she said if the Congress is really interested in improving business, they should be spending money on education. For women, they should be spending money on good daycare
And how
and
about
on the medical benefits.
All right.
And
for
how
the
about
people.
infrastructure? That seems
That's
to
the
have been
important
forgotten.
thing. Now, I'd just like to get
Yeah,
to
get
the,
in there, please,
I would like to get
Lucille.
to the tax bill, just
Right.
in case our audience is
I
not
think
aware
that's what
of
we
it.
were talking about.
Right.
Well, we're
Go ahead.
We were talking about the
Why
tax
do you-
bill.
Why does this echo seem to take place here?
I don't know, you don't listen.
Don't.
Go
You're
ahead.
not very
Go
nice.
ahead, Lucille.
Okay,
You
listen.
are-
We're almost
I
to the
want
end of
this
our.
to
All right,
stop.
let's-
Never mind. I want this to stop. I
Lucille,
want my, I
go.
want my
Just a
time.
moment. I don't think we have much more time.
Well, I
so-
have a couple of minutes, and there I wanted to say, as our audience knows, the corporations love this bill, no problem at all, because their tax rate would go down to 15%, and of course the estate
22.
tax, no, 15% on the corporations,
No, no, you have,
Go ahead.
and 22% for the estate tax, of course, which is wonderful. No, let's see, no, the estate
Lucille,
tax will be
Lucille.
off. So, for us, what are we going to be losing? Medical expenses no longer can be deducted. Teachers who use their own money to buy classroom supplies no longer can deduct.
Listen, how about Social Security and Medicare?
State and local taxes no longer
she won't
deduct.
stop.
Property deductions, property tax
Lucille, I have to
deductions.
cut you off
Oh.
because our time is up.
Oh.
I wanted to thank everybody, my panel and our audience out there, for listening to us. And I'm hoping that we'll see you and hear you again.
In the new
My
year.
panel for the new year. Have a wonderful holiday with your family and your friends. Happiness, health, and good
And
fortune.
Pearl,
I love you
please-
all. Please come back and see us.
Please do something against this bill,
That's
because
right.
we,
Write your
at our
congressman.
ages, are
Write
going
your
to be hit.
congressman.
We are advocating the
Don't worry,
bill
no
to
one
go
in
down.
Massachusetts will vote for it.
Thank you, everyone.
Don't
Have a
worry
wonderful
about that.
holiday.
Yes.